Morning, everyone. Well, I think if you were in the moment during worship and listening to the words and watching the kids and have just listened to Charlene, my talk is pretty much covered. So I probably could sit down. I think all the fundamental lessons were all there. But yeah, a few weeks ago, Charlene asked me to come and talk about parenting. And to be honest, my first thought was, really? Not now, not while I'm feeling so challenged in my own parenting ability. But God has good plans, and He has good ways of helping you learn, and a good sense of humor, I've learned. So first off, I want to assure you that I don't stand here today as the perfect parent. My qualifications definitely don't make me an expert in parenting. To be honest, sometimes I feel like those hairdressers who, just because they're a hairdresser, you expect them to have great hair, but actually their hair looks concerningly unkept. As parents, we're all novices doing on-the-job training, and our trainers, well, those are our highly skilled children. And your parents, if you let them interfere. So whether or not you're currently in the season of raising little people, I hope that as I speak today, each of you will find something worth taking away with you. Parenting at the end of the day is about relationship. And so the principles that I want to talk about are relevant in all relationships, really. So parenting advice, where do I begin? There are books, there are blogs, there are podcasts, there are seminars, there are courses, there are super nannies, all giving you advice, tips, answers, 5-step programs, 10-week parenting plans with the promises of a better behaved child and a happier family, all of which actually just make you feel more of an inadequate parent and raise your guilt levels. So I don't come bearing a plan or a program today, sorry for those who you're hoping. But I do want to share a simple foundational concept. I want to focus on what I personally have felt really challenged by recently, but what I know really does work if you get it and you do it and you make it a habit. Parenting joyfully. It's so easy to parent joyfully when your child gives you the tightest hug, when she squeezes your cheeks and says, "I love you," when he laughs from the bottom of his tummy, when he scores a goal and makes you proud, when she helps you without actually asking, and when he stops when you say stop, when the kids sleep through when you're on top of your to-do list. But we all have those days when the score feels 100 to 1 in the kids' favor, when the kids' listening ears fell off somewhere in the middle of the night and got lost under the bed, when you've misplaced your patience and your self-control between the scattered toys and the pile of washing, or when you arrive home from a long day at work and the kids are crying and your wife wants time out, when you just want to tap out, when you actually just want to pass the baton on. But who on earth would want your baton? And then the kids fall asleep and you have a moment to breathe and you realize you have survived your day. And you think, how do I fix this? Then it takes a lot of effort to tap into your joy and parent joyfully. So there's one foundational principle and a starting point that I always use when I am doing my therapy with children and when I'm advising parents. And I attempt to use it at home, especially when I feel like I'm losing control of myself or my children. Stop, breathe, and connect. When you've used all your parenting top tips and everything seems to have failed, your starting point is to connect. James 4:8 says, "Draw near to God and He will draw near to you." I think we all have those times when life feels like it's just offloaded itself onto us, and we're wondering why it feels so hard, and we're praying for answers and praying for help and wondering why we're not seeing God or hearing God. And then we suddenly realize it's because we actually haven't stopped and given God uninterrupted time with us to actually speak to us. It's the same with our kids and our partners and friends. In Mark 6, Jesus and his disciples had been caught up in the busyness of feeding 5,000 plus people with a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. And then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles hadn't even had time to eat. They needed to eat in order to nourish themselves. But Jesus also uses this time to reconnect with his disciples. You're probably thinking, connect, great. So what are the 5 practical things to do to make that happen? Frustratingly, I don't have a simple 5-step recipe for you because God made your child unique. But I do want to share some ideas with you. My girls have what I think of as lots of empty containers. And every day they need filling. Some need to be filled with hugs, some with attention, some with sense of power. But today I want to focus on their love jugs. I've learned that when my girls' love jugs are nearing empty, the best way that they can tell me is by whining, tantruming, hanging on my leg, being defiant, and losing their listening ears. I now know that 80% of the time my girls' unacceptable behaviors can, if I choose to, be quite easily changed if I just fill up their love jugs by connecting with them. And the other 20% of the time, it usually can be resolved by either feeding them or putting them to bed. Unfortunately, life with its infinite distractions, busy schedules, constant separations, has a way of eroding connection. How many times a day do you think your connection with your children is broken? Yes, going to nursery or to school is a major daily separation, but actually there are so many moments of broken connection between you and your child every day. Thankfully, children are pretty good at initiating connection. If you think about it, what's the first thing your child does when they wake up? I bet you it's either call you or come into your room, climb into your bed, and climb on top of you so that they can reconnect. And when you disappear to the bathroom, there's that inevitable, "Mommy," 15 seconds later. So I've discovered that when I'm proactive and I actually just beat my girls at the connecting game by filling up their love jugs before I start making dinner or before I make a phone call, I get a few extra minutes before that "Mommy" and the attention needing begins. So connection needs to be remade throughout the day, little and often. But how? Well, you know your child's likes and your child's needs better than anyone. But here are a few tips. Please don't be disappointed at the simplicity of these. Yes, you probably know them, you probably have tried them, and you probably might even think they just don't actually work with your kids. But sometimes we just need a gentle reminder and a bit more practice in what we do already know. So how do we connect? I'm going to start at the beginning. Start your day with a smile. It's that simple. Your child has had an entire, if you're lucky, night in their own bed, and their love tank is definitely going to need refilling before their day can begin joyfully. So my girls' moods generally are so much more cheerful if I've started their day and my day with a smile. Literally, the first thing that I try and ensure they see in the morning is my smile. So you smile, and then you need to hug your child lots. Research shows that hugs increase the body's natural happy chemicals. It strengthens your immune system, balances your nervous system, it causes the body to relax, it boosts esteem, it builds trust, and importantly, it teaches us how to give and receive. So once you've smiled and you've hugged, you need to learn your child's love language and speak to them in it. So we all receive and give love best in different ways. And Dr. Gary Chapman explains the 5 different love languages. Those are touch, words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. Once you know what speaks love to your child, use it when you're trying to connect with them. Then, importantly, always remember to top up before you disconnect. So fill your child's love jug, whether it's with a hug, a quick story, a tickle, a shoulder rub, playing, whatever you do, don't smile for those few minutes before you disconnect will really help your child. The next one is really important, and it's one that is kind of the foundation of when I do therapy with children. Acknowledge your child's feelings. We feel heard and supported when our feelings are acknowledged. Children need their feelings to be labeled and to be noticed, because most of the time they don't actually even know what they are feeling, other than totally overwhelmed by the roller coaster of emotions that they've experienced during their day. So when everything seems to be bothering your child and nothing seems to be able to satisfy her need, sometimes what she really needs is a simple, "Oh, everything is bothering you today and nothing seems to be doing what you want it to do." That way you're letting her know that it's okay to have that feeling and that you know how she feels. So you're smiling and you're hugging, you're talking your child's language, topping up their love jugs, acknowledging their feelings. But for this to really mean anything, you need to give your child your time. Time is something that as a parent you just never seem to have enough of. But choose to dedicate and schedule, if you really need to, uninterrupted one-on-one time with your child each day. Begin with 10 minutes, if that's what you realistically can do. Just make it achievable. But in that time, let your child lead you. It might be 10 minutes at bedtime, 10 minutes in the morning. It's just finding that time where it's just you and your child and it's uninterrupted. Let your child decide what to do, and then genuinely enjoy those 10 minutes with them. In order to connect deeply with our kids, we need to step into their worlds and do what they want us to do in their way, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day. Number 7, to help you connect, turn your brain off and your heart on. If anyone has the ability to read your thoughts, it's your child. And if she can't read your thoughts, she most definitely can read your face and your tone of voice. You might be good at multitasking by now, but you are never going to be able to connect with your child and write a mental to-do list at the same time. And lastly, if you're trying to connect, put your phone in timeout instead of your child. Last week, as I waited on hold for 25 minutes to the gas company and I was half trying to play with Amy at the same time, she reminded me of this very important lesson when she stomped her foot and she said, "Mommy, stop playing with your phone and play with me." From the mouth of a 2-year-old. So, we've looked at connecting. You might have noticed that all of these are about you and your behavior and not your child and changing your child's behavior. If there's one thing I've learned in parenting, it's that I flavor my family's day. I hear some of you thinking, I do hug, I play with her all day, every day, I flood her with affirming words. It doesn't work. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, do it with all your heart. Do it for the Lord and not for men." Have you ever had a conversation with someone when, despite they're smiling and nodding, you know they aren't actually listening to a word you're saying? Our kids want us and need us to show joy in being with them. Your kid knows when you're pretending to be joyful. After all, they spend most of their day in the world of pretend. Joy is not meant to be a momentary feeling that you find on the good days. Joy is an eternal gift which we are free to live in daily. Jesus said, "These things I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full." But why then do we find it so difficult sometimes to feel joyful? When last did you laugh, like really and truly laugh, that your stomach hurts and your eyes stream? We let ourselves become so lost in the bombardment of life's circumstances, work pressures, technological distractions, we let ourselves be connectable to the rest of the world 24/7. When we're exhausted and overcomplicate what should be simple, we lose the joy in what is actually a really blessed life and a really blessed season in our life. Now, I'm not saying that we all should or even could, and I'm definitely not saying that I do every day skip around my home whistling a merry tune while my girls play peacefully around me. Let's be honest, there are always going to be those days when our buckets feel just as empty as our fridge because we forgot to order groceries. But I do know that when I parent joyfully, our days at home are filled with much more laughter, with spontaneous "mommies, I love you," and spontaneous hugs. And even when their listening ears fall off, because all kids' ears do, they manage to find them so much quicker. So here's a few things that I've learned along the way to help find joy in my parenting. And again, you probably know them already, and you probably tell yourself off for not using them often enough because you know they actually work. But here's a reminder. The first one, choose to be joyful. It really is that simple, but oh so difficult some days. Let's be honest, 90% of parenting is pretty monotonous. There are things that have to be done on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and some things need to be done 10 times in the same day. And parenting just makes you an expert in repetition. Wash your hands, say please, what do you say? Be gentle, don't touch that, please stop in the corner. So you can either grumble through the monotony or you can just choose to embrace it. Sometimes we just need to look at things through our child's eyes. We might see the brown cardboard box that actually has been taken from the pile of recycling that needs to go to the recycling bin. And why have you taken that box again? While our child sees it as a container of infinite moments of joy. So before I get out of bed each morning, I try to make a conscious choice to find joy in my day. Some days I have to search pretty hard, but I'm realizing that it's not that the joyful moments aren't there. It's that I'm too busy grumbling and saying it's time to do this and stop messing while I'm trying to tidy, that I don't actually just stop to embrace the moment and step into the joy that my children are playing in. Sometimes we just need to take a breath. We need to gather ourselves and choose to be joyful before we open our mouths. God has given us the fruits of His Spirit. He has placed in our hearts joy and peace and patience and self-control. You just need to choose to use it and pray for help when you can't find it. I've realized that I must pray quite often for help. When the other day I heard Emily mumbling under her breath as she was playing Mommy's, "Lord, please help me." So feeling the pressure to practice what I'm talking about, I've had to find ways to push through those moments when it would actually just be far easier to shout, "Just listen, I'm counting to 3, and then there's going to be trouble." And so now I find myself breaking out into songs about there being joy down in our hearts, while I try and pull Amy out from under the bed to brush her teeth, and Hannah's world's falling apart because Amy took her most special toy en route to her hiding place under the bed. So yes, tip 1 for finding your joy in parenting is choose it. And then my greatest challenge, which I've yet to really crack, go to bed. I don't think I need to say any more. I think every parent understands the need for sleep. Then the next lesson in joy that we all know, but it somehow always just seems to fall off the bottom of our to-do list during the day. Fill your own bucket. I try my best to wake up before my girls, to give myself a moment to connect with myself and to bring my day before God and to put on my smile as I hear the pitter-patter of feet coming into my bedroom. find a way to fill your own bucket. No one wants the dregs from the bottom of your bucket. We all know what those days turn out like. And then let it go. Our house hasn't watched Frozen, but I somehow know the words to that song along with the rest of the world. And I suddenly often hear it in my head. We all know that we need to pick our battles as parents. But recently I sat down and decided to do a big clear out of the battles that we fight. Kids are kids, and nearly everything that they do that we let push our buttons is actually just a phase. And really, is it going to make them such a terrible human being? So the word poo-poo head has made a reappearance in my house. And so this time, although there are boundaries around how it can be used, I'm trying to embrace how ridiculously funny the word poo-poo head is to a 2- and 4-year-old. Finally, to be joyful, you need to be fun. No child can resist a good game, even if it eventually leads to the bath or somewhere else that they would rather avoid. My girls never hear me when I say, it's time to go upstairs. But somehow their ears always switch on as soon as I go, nay, who wants to climb on this horse and gallop up the stairs? So we need to stop and connect throughout the day, and we need to do it joyfully. But I know that you're thinking, what happens when I've connected? And I've acknowledged that he really, really does want that biscuit, even though it's dinner time. And I've galloped upstairs like a horse, and he's still screaming no. We could discuss setting boundaries and encouraging your child to choose to stay on the right side of those boundaries all day. But so we'll have to save that for another session. But I will say that you need to connect before you can correct, because connection feeds cooperation. I'd like to leave you with 2 last thoughts about our children's behavior, more specifically our role in our children's behavior. I'm realizing that the Bible is a pretty good parenting book, actually. The principles of positive parenting aren't something new. They're right there in the Bible. Proverbs 22 says, train up your child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. How many times have you heard yourself saying, how many times do I have to tell you? So often we naturally tell our children what not to do, and then rely on their still developing cognitive brains to decipher what they should do and remember to do that. When you say, don't hit your sister on the head, chances are your child is probably so caught up in the moment of playing, and you've skipped past the stopping and connecting and making sure you have their attention because you're trying to avoid injury, that all your child hears is, hit sister head, and so does it again. Secondly, she might just be really needing to release some of her pent-up feelings, and she's also learning about self-control and the impact that her actions have on someone else, and so she really does have the need to hit something, and until you offer her a more acceptable, in your eyes, thing to hit, she will use her sister's head. So help your child to think of what she should do rather than telling her what not to do. And my final thought, we need to parent by example. Did you know that a 1-day-old baby can mimic you sticking your tongue out? Yes, from day 1, our kids have been watching us and taking mental notes. You are your child's first teacher, and your child is going to follow your example far more than she'll follow your advice. So be the person that you want your child to become. So I thought it might be useful to share an example with you of how this kind of all works and comes together. Last week, Hannah was not having a good morning. And so by the time we came to standing at the door to leave for school, her pony was not as tight as she wanted it to be. Her tights were tickling her toes, her coat was too thick, her school bag was too heavy, and pretty much her world was falling apart. And I was a poo-poo mommy because obviously everything was my fault. And as I opened my mouth, I caught myself, and I turned what could have been words from the dregs in my bucket because I went to bed too late. I turned it into a deep breath, and I stepped towards her and I hugged her. And that wasn't quite what she needed because she just screamed at me, and I was more of a poo-poo mommy because now I'd messed up her hair as well as everything else. So I took a step back and I looked at her and I just gently said, Han, I can see something's really bothering you. Something's making you feel so sad and so tired this morning. And as all children do, she screamed, I'm not tired, I'm not bothered. But then her shouts became tears. And so I seized the moment to step towards her, and I just wrapped my arms around her. And she climbed up onto my lap, and she said, Mommy, I don't like big school. I don't like all the big school work. I want to go to baby school. I want to be a baby in your tummy again. And I hugged her and I whispered gently in her ear, Han, I know you wish you could be a baby. I think you just want to stay at home all day with me today. She sat quietly for a few minutes, and then she looked at me and she smiled and she said, I love you, Mommy. And I seized that moment to restart our day joyfully. And we began a game of Guess How Much I Love You, which got sillier and sillier as we walked along the road to school. Yes, it probably took me a similar amount of time as it would have if we had spent the time screaming at each other to get out the door and get ready. But it was a moment of joyful connection that has stuck in my heart, and based on the number of times that we've played Guess How Much I Love You since then, I know it's stuck in Hannah's heart too. And both of our days were much more joyful. So that's a bit of an illustration in connecting with your children and specifically connecting with their feelings and helping them feel heard. But I also wanted to show you a short video clip. It's more reality TV than Hollywood production. But hopefully it'll give you a glimpse into finding joy in those monotonous chores as a parent. And also just using joy to avoid the battles. Please note, nothing in this video has been planned, practiced, or prompted. This is as real as it gets.
Amy, come brush your teeth. Amy, look at me, brush your teeth. Come, let's go brush your teeth. Amy, come jump on my back. Come on, let's go brush teeth. Come on. Let's go. Is there any bugs in there? You gonna do it? Or must I? You do it. Can I help you? Let me check. What's inside there?
A crocodile.
Show me a crocodile. Wait, I see. Let's see the other bugs. Is there Uncle Denver bug in there?
No.
What What about Auntie Charlene? Come, let's see.
Let's see.
Doesn't always work. Ooh, is it an Auntie Courtney bug in there? Let's see. Yes? Is it Auntie Katie bug?
Yes.
Let's see. Open. What about a nanny one?
Yeah.
Yes? Where's the nanny one?
And my mouth.
In your mouth. Amy, is it okay to spit on the floor?
Yeah.
That was not planned at all. Kids will be kids. So, our job as parents is to be a filler amongst an infinity of other things. We get to decide each day what we fill our children with before we send them out into the world. It's simple, so simple that some of you might be sitting there thinking, really, that's what you're leaving me with? I knew that already. I'm sure you did. Because you're a good parent, and even though some days it might not feel like it, you do know how to do it. It takes 63 days to form a habit. So now all you need to do is embrace your season of parenting joyfully and go and practice, just as you tell your kids to.